Have you ever wondered what happens the moment you die, before you're born again? What if there's a hidden world between death and rebirth, an unseen realm where your deepest fears, your past karma, and your purest potential all come alive? The Buddha didn't just teach us how to live well. He revealed how to die wisely, and how to navigate the mysterious in-between. It's called the Bardo, the state between lives. And what happens there could determine everything about your next life, or your liberation from it. In this talk, we'll explore the Buddha's profound teachings on the Bardo, how consciousness continues after death, how karma ripens, and how the mind itself becomes the creator of both heavens and hells. If you want to understand what truly happens after death, and how to prepare for it, stay with me. This could change not just how you die, but how you live. Imagine, just for a moment, that your heart has taken its final beat. Your breath has stopped. Your body lies still. The people around you may think it's over, but in the Buddhist view, it's only just beginning. This in-between space, between the end of one life and the beginning of the next, is known as the Bardo. It's not a place you can see with the eyes or touch with the hands. It's a state of consciousness, a transitional phase, a sacred opportunity. In Tibetan Buddhism, the word Bardo literally means intermediate state. It refers to the gap, the passage between death and rebirth. But it's more than just a waiting room. It's a mirror, a theater, a storm, and a choice. According to the Buddha's teachings, consciousness doesn't end when the body dies. The mind, shaped by our habits, emotions, and karma, continues. It moves, it shifts, and in the Bardo, it meets the consequences of its own nature, face to face. Some traditions describe the Bardo as lasting up to 49 days. Others say the transition can be much faster, depending on the clarity of the mind and the force of one's karma. But regardless of the time, the experience is deeply personal and deeply revealing. In this state, the illusions of physical reality fade away. There is no more job, no body, no country, no possessions. What remains is the mind itself, naked and raw, interacting with visions, lights, sounds, and experiences born entirely from within. For most people, the Bardo is confusing, disorienting, even frightening. Why? Because for the first time, the mind is no longer tethered to a body. It can't rely on senses. It can't escape its own projections. Everything one encounters in the Bardo is shaped by what the mind has created over a lifetime and lifetimes before that. But this is not a horror story. In fact, the Bardo offers a rare and precious chance. A moment where liberation is possible, if one has prepared. If one has trained the mind in awareness, compassion, and insight. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which draws heavily from the Buddha's teachings and later interpretations, the Bardo is seen not just as a passive waiting time, but as an active arena. The dying person experiences bright lights, peaceful and wrathful deities, and shifting visions. Some of these are beautiful and comforting. Others are terrifying, but all of them are expressions of the mind itself. Here's the thing. Most people don't recognize that. They believe the visions are real. They run from them, or chase them. Fear arises, clinging arises, and so, the momentum of karma pulls them into a new birth. But for the rare person who is mindful, who remembers the teachings, there is space. Space to recognize, this is not truly real. This is just mind. And in that recognition, there is freedom. There is peace. There is the possibility of breaking the cycle of birth and death entirely. This understanding changes how we live now. Because if the Bardo is shaped by our present thoughts and emotions, then every moment of anger or greed or fear we cultivate today will echo there. And every moment of love, generosity, and mindfulness we nurture now becomes a light in that future darkness. The Buddha taught that life is uncertain, but death is certain. Yet he didn't leave us in fear. He offered a path, a way to train the mind, to understand its nature, and to prepare for the journey ahead. Not just to die peacefully, but to die wisely. So why should someone in the modern Western world, living with science and reason and technology, care about the Bardo? Because regardless of belief, everyone will face the moment of death. And what happens in that space, whether imagined, real, symbolic, or literal, depends entirely on how we've lived and trained the mind. Even for those who don't believe in rebirth, the Bardo can serve as a profound metaphor, that between one ending and the next beginning, there is always choice, there is always the mind, and there is always the possibility for awakening. Let's go deeper. The idea of the Bardo might seem foreign, mystical, or even strange at first. But let's bring it closer. Imagine you're in a dream. In the dream, everything feels real. You're running, laughing, crying, maybe flying. Then suddenly, you wake up. The dream vanishes, and you realize none of it was truly happening outside you. It was all the mind. The Bardo is like that. A dream state, but magnified. A mental projection, but intensified. And yet, within that projection lies deep truth. For the awakened ones, the Bardo isn't scary. It's clear. It's luminous. It's a field of potential. Why? Because they've trained. They know the nature of the mind. They recognize appearances as appearances, emotions as passing clouds, light as light. But for the untrained mind, especially one gripped by strong attachments, the Bardo can feel overwhelming. The mind projects visions based on fear, desire, regret, and ignorance. If you've lived a life running from discomfort and clinging to pleasure, the Bardo will reflect exactly that. This is why the Buddha emphasized mindfulness and understanding. When we live with awareness, we plant seeds that sprout in the Bardo. We build familiarity with letting go, with seeing through illusions, with choosing clarity over confusion. Consider this. Every moment of life is a kind of Bardo. A gap, a transition, between breaths, between thoughts, between roles, between identities. If we learn to rest in these gaps with awareness, we are essentially preparing for the ultimate Bardo. And that's good news, because it means we can start practicing now. We don't need to wait for the moment of death to begin learning how to navigate the Bardo. We can practice letting go, watching thoughts arise and pass, not clinging, not judging, just witnessing, just resting. Even a few seconds of genuine mindfulness today can become a light in the Bardo tomorrow. Many advanced Buddhist practitioners do specific meditations for dying and Bardo navigation. They visualize the stages of dissolution. They rehearse recognizing the clear light that arises at death. They train in remembering to call out to Buddhas or visualize pure realms. These aren't rituals, they're rehearsals. They're spiritual preparation. But even if you don't do formal practice, you can start simply. Pause, breathe, watch the mind, speak kindly, forgive often, meditate, serve others. All of this creates conditions for a peaceful transition. The Buddha never said death was the end. He said it was a door. And beyond that door is not a void, but a mirror. What we see there depends on who we've become here. So what will your Bardo look like? Will it be a storm of fear or a sky of clarity? A rush of regrets or a resting in peace? The choice begins now. In the next part, we'll explore the 6 types of Bardo the Buddha and later masters described, and how they give us a full map of consciousness in transition. From this life, into death, through rebirth, and beyond. Previously, we explored the Bardo as the space between death and rebirth, a mysterious realm shaped by our own consciousness. But in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the Bardo is not just a single moment. It's a series of moments. In fact, The Bardo teachings describe 6 distinct types of transitional states that we all pass through, not just in death, but in life. That's a crucial insight. The Bardo is not just something that happens when we die. It is happening now. The 6 Bardos are like a map, 6 stages or experiences that our consciousness goes through as it navigates different thresholds of existence. By understanding them, we begin to see that death is not separate from life, and life itself is already preparation for what comes next. Let's begin with the first Bardo, the one you're in right now. It's called the Bardo of this life, or in Tibetan, Kayane Bardo. This is the state of living, from the moment we're born until the moment we die. You might not have thought of your current life as a Bardo, but it is. Why? Because it, too, is impermanent, transitional, constantly shifting. The body changes, thoughts arise and fade, relationships come and go. There is nothing fixed. This life is a river flowing toward death, and it's the most important Bardo of all, because it sets the stage for everything that comes after. The second Bardo is the Bardo of dream, Milam Bardo. This refers to the experience we have when we sleep. In Buddhism, dreams are seen not just as random mental events, but as a training ground for death. Why? Because in sleep, the body lies still, the senses turn inward, and the mind continues to generate realities. Sounds familiar? That's exactly what happens in the Bardo after death. So those who train in lucid dreaming, who practice awareness in dreams, are actually learning how to navigate death itself. The third is the Bardo of meditation, Samten Bardo. This refers to the deep states of consciousness experienced during meditation. When a meditator enters a non-dual state, when they recognize the mind as clear, open, and without boundary, they are glimpsing the same reality that appears at death. Meditation becomes rehearsal, a preparation, a doorway. So already, we see that 3 of the 6 Bardos are available to us while we're still alive. That's incredibly hopeful. It means we don't have to wait until we die to begin practicing. Every breath, every night's sleep, every moment on the cushion, these are moments of training. They are glimpses into what the Bardo will be like. Now we enter the Bardos that unfold at and after death. The fourth is the Bardo of the moment of death, Chikai Bardo. This is the actual process of dying. In Buddhist teachings, death is not instantaneous. It unfolds in stages. First, the senses dissolve. Then the elements of the body, earth, water, fire, air, disintegrate. Finally, the mind returns to its most subtle essence. This is the moment when the clear light of death appears. For the untrained, it's a flash too brief to notice. For the mindful, it is the ultimate opportunity. Recognizing that light is equivalent to enlightenment, but it requires incredible stability and presence. That's why meditation in life matters so much. That's why living with clarity matters so much. Because how you die is shaped by how you live. The fifth is the Bardo of the experiencing of reality, Choni Bardo. This stage occurs after death but before rebirth. Here, the mind encounters vivid visions, some radiant and peaceful, others wrathful and frightening. In Tibetan tradition, these visions are described as deities, sounds, lights, and patterns of overwhelming intensity. But they are not outside forces. They are projections of our own mind. They reflect our karma, our emotions, our subconscious tendencies. This Bardo is like a cosmic movie theater. The screen is blank, but the projector is your mind. If you understand this, you can relax. You can recognize the illusion and find liberation. But if you believe the movie is real, if you panic, cling, or run, it becomes a terrifying experience. And the momentum of karma pulls you forward. Then we come to the sixth Bardo, the Bardo of becoming, Sidpa Bardo. This is the final transitional state before rebirth. At this stage, the consciousness begins seeking a new body. a new life. But it's not a conscious choice. It's driven by karma and habit. If the mind is filled with craving and confusion, it gravitates toward familiar patterns, even painful ones. This is the most dangerous and decisive moment. The choices made in this bardo can determine your next birth, human, animal, celestial, or hellish. And yet, even here, liberation is possible. If the mind is clear, if mindfulness remains, even this final phase can lead to awakening. Now that we've explored the 6 bardos, you might be wondering, what does this have to do with me? Right now, the answer is everything. Because you're already in the bardo of this life. You've been in it since the day you were born. And you will remain in it until the moment your breath leaves your body. This bardo isn't just about waiting for death. It's about recognizing the transitions happening moment to moment. Every emotion is a mini bardo. Every life event is a crossing. Every morning, every dream, every breath, it's all shifting. Always shifting. The bardo isn't an event. It's a way of seeing reality. And that's liberating. Because once you recognize you're in a bardo, you become less attached to solidity. You stop expecting life to be permanent, predictable, or controllable. You start embracing change as natural. And that opens the heart. You might begin to notice how you resist transitions, how fear arises when relationships change, when roles shift, when the body ages. These are tiny deaths. And each time, the mind reacts. It clings. It panics. It denies. But with awareness, you can meet these moments differently. With gentleness. With curiosity. With compassion. That's bardo training. Even the bardo of dreams can become practice. When you dream, you can learn to ask, am I dreaming? That small question can lead to lucidity. And lucidity leads to freedom. If you can wake up in your dreams, you're training to wake up in death. And meditation, this sacred space of silence and stillness, is perhaps the most powerful bardo of all. Because in deep meditation, you touch the ground of being. You see the thoughts come and go. You watch the emotions rise and fade. And eventually, you glimpse the pure awareness beneath it all. That is the same awareness that arises at the moment of death. So meditation becomes rehearsal, not for dying, but for waking up. What does all this mean for your daily life? It means you don't have to wait for the bardo to find you. You can find it right now. In the way you respond to a challenge. In the way you meet sadness. In the way you let go of expectations. Every moment is a choice. Every moment is a doorway. And that is the deepest teaching. Bardo is not punishment. It is opportunity. An opportunity to see, to let go, to awaken. The Buddha taught that samsara, the cycle of birth and death, is not just out there. It's in here, in the mind. And the way to end suffering is not to run from it, but to meet it with clear seeing and a steady heart. So when the bardo of death comes, and it will, you will already know it. You will have practiced. You will have walked the path. And that moment, instead of being filled with fear, will be filled with light. And perhaps, instead of being pulled blindly into a new birth, you will rise, calm, clear, and free. In the next section, we'll explore the powerful link between karma and the bardo, how every action, every thought, every intention in this life shapes what we will see, feel, and become in the space between death and rebirth. In the previous sections, we explored the different bardos, the transitional states of life, death, and consciousness. We saw that the bardo is not just a future event, but a present process. Now, we turn to a question that lies at the very heart of Buddhist wisdom. What determines what we experience in the bardo? The answer is karma. But not karma in the way it's often misunderstood in the West. Not a system of reward and punishment. Not fate. Not cosmic justice doled out by a divine judge. In Buddhism, karma means action, intentional action, and more precisely, the the seeds that intentional actions leave in the mind. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every deed you do, when done with intention, plants a seed. Some seeds are seeds of peace, compassion, generosity, clarity. Others are seeds of confusion, fear, anger, greed, and these seeds don't vanish when you forget them. They stay in the mind stream, dormant, but alive, until conditions ripen, and they bear fruit. Where do they bear fruit? Right now, in your emotional states, in your relationships, in the situations that arise in your life, but also, and even more intensely, in the Bardo. Why? Because in the Bardo, the normal filters of the physical world are gone. The body is gone, the brain is gone, the distractions of everyday life, the jobs, screens, errands, all gone. What's left is raw consciousness. And that consciousness begins to manifest its content. The seeds of karma sprout instantly, without delay. This is why the Bardo can feel like a dream, or a hallucination, or a storm of emotion and vision. You are no longer shielded from yourself. Your own mind becomes the landscape you walk through. If you've cultivated fear, you may encounter terrifying images. If you've cultivated hatred, you may find yourself chased by angry beings. If you've cultivated craving, you may experience burning thirst, insatiable desire, or a longing that leads you into painful rebirths. But if you've cultivated love, patience, mindfulness, you may encounter peaceful lights, radiant Buddhas, or serene emptiness. You may feel drawn toward higher realms, or even glimpse liberation. The Buddha gave this teaching not to scare us, but to empower us. Because it means we're not victims of random fate. We are participants in shaping our destiny, moment by moment. Many of us live our lives believing that our inner world doesn't matter as much as the outer world. We focus on achievements, possessions, appearances, but in the Bardo, all of that dissolves, and the only thing that matters is what's inside. There's a famous metaphor in the Tibetan tradition. The mind in the Bardo is like a horse without a rider. In life, we have some reins. We can restrain our impulses, hold ourselves back, distract ourselves. But in the Bardo, the reins are cut. The horse runs wild, guided only by the momentum of its own habits. That's karma. You can't fake it in the Bardo. You can't pretend to be peaceful if you haven't practiced peace. You can't find compassion if you haven't watered it. You can't calm the mind in death if you've never trained it in life. And yet, this is not a message of despair. It's a message of profound hope. Because starting right now, in this moment, you can plant better seeds. You can begin to shift your karmic trajectory. You can choose your future by how you meet the present. There's an ancient teaching that says, when the body falls away, the mirror of karma appears. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, not a physical one, but a mirror that reflects your entire mind. Every memory, every emotion, every desire, every regret. In the Bardo, this mirror is not symbolic. It's experiential. You live in it. You don't just remember your jealousy. You see it as a monster chasing you. You don't just remember your kindness. You feel it as a light that surrounds and protects you. The mind, unfiltered, creates your reality. And that's both terrifying and liberating. Liberating, because if the mind creates the world, then clarity creates freedom. The Buddha taught that awareness is stronger than karma. That means, even in the Bardo, if you have trained the mind to remain aware, to recognize appearances as projections, you can cut through them. You can avoid being trapped by your own illusions. You can remember, this is just mind. This is where the power of mindfulness becomes clear. Mindfulness is not just about stress reduction or feeling calm. It's about training the mind to recognize its own nature, to not be fooled by appearances, to not cling to what arises. If you've practiced mindfulness in life, then in the Bardo you have a chance to wake up. You might see a frightening figure and instead of running, recognize, "Ah, this is my anger. It cannot hurt me." You might see a tempting vision and say, "This is desire. It will pass." In that recognition, there is space, and in that space, liberation can arise. This is also why mantra practice is emphasized in Tibetan Buddhism. Repeating the name of a Buddha, especially at the time of death, can anchor the mind. It gives the consciousness something to hold onto, something familiar, sacred, stabilizing. For example, chanting Amitabha or Om Mani Padme Hum not only creates positive karma in life, but in the Bardo, it can become a guiding light. But let's be honest, most people don't die with perfect mindfulness. Most of us will face the Bardo with some level of confusion. That's okay. That's human. That's why preparation matters. Not preparation in the form of rigid religious rituals, but in cultivating a way of life that leads to clarity. Practicing forgiveness, letting go of grudges, making peace with our past, being honest with ourselves. These are the trainings that shape our karma, and therefore, shape our experience in the Bardo. There's one more piece: intention. In Buddhism, intention is the most powerful part of karma. Even if you've made mistakes, even if you've lived with some confusion, if your intention is sincere, to awaken, to help others, to grow, that energy carries weight. It can shine like a beacon in the Bardo, guiding the mind toward better realms. So when you think about karma, don't think of it as judgment. Think of it as gravity. You go where your energy pulls you. You're drawn to the next life that matches your mind. What kind of mind are you creating? That's the question the Bardo asks, not with words, but with experience. And if you don't like the answer, that's okay, because you can change it, starting now. Buddhism isn't about waiting for the afterlife. It's about transforming this life, so that when the Bardo comes, it's not a shock, it's a familiar friend. In the next part, we'll explore one of the most powerful and profound moments of the Bardo: the appearance of the clear light, the pure, radiant, open awareness that arises the moment we die. It's said that recognizing this light is the doorway to full liberation. But why do so few of us see it, and how can we train to meet it when it comes? We'll dive into that next. In the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, there is one moment in the Bardo that is more profound than any other. A moment that holds the greatest potential for awakening. It comes not long after the final breath. The body has stopped, the senses have shut down, the outer world fades completely. And then, it appears. This is the clear light, known in Tibetan as Osul. It is the pure, radiant awareness that is always present, but usually hidden beneath layers of thought, emotion, and distraction. At the time of death, when everything else falls away, this light shines through, not metaphorically, literally. It is experienced as a boundless, luminous openness, infinite, spacious, free from form. The clear light is not something outside of us. It is the very nature of the mind itself, revealed when all other appearances dissolve. In the teachings, it is compared to the sky without clouds, or the surface of a still lake, undisturbed, reflecting nothing but its own clarity. This moment is so powerful, so sacred, that the entire spiritual path could be seen as preparation for it. Because if we can recognize the clear light when it appears, if we can remain present and not recoil, it offers the direct gateway to liberation. Imagine that: total freedom, no more rebirth, no more suffering, no more confusion, just resting in the true nature of mind, vast, open, timeless awareness. But there's a catch. Most people don't recognize the clear light when it comes. Even though it's the most natural, most familiar thing, we turn away from it. Why? Because we're not used to it. We're used to form, sound, thought, identity. The mind clings to what it knows. And the clear light, though beautiful, feels like nothingness to the ego. The personality doesn't know how to relate to it. It feels like death, not just physical death, but the death of the self. And that's terrifying to an untrained mind. So what happens? Instead of resting in the light, the consciousness turns away. It seeks something more familiar, images, sounds, activity. And with that turning, the opportunity for liberation passes. The mind moves into the next phase of the Bardo. The projections begin, the karmic visions arise, and the wheel of rebirth starts to turn again. This is why practice during life is so essential. Because recognition at death doesn't happen by accident. It happens through familiarity, through training, through remembering. In meditation, when the mind becomes quiet, sometimes a glimpse of the clear light appears. It's not dramatic, it's subtle, a sense of open space, awareness without an object, a presence without a center. The more we become familiar with this in life, the more likely we are to recognize it in death. In fact, some teachers say that every night, when we fall asleep, we pass through a brief moment of the clear light. Most people miss it, but those who are trained can catch it. And that nightly recognition becomes a rehearsal for the ultimate moment. That's the beauty of the Dharma. It doesn't ask us to believe in something we can't experience. It invites us to explore for ourselves, to touch, even briefly, the spacious awareness that is already here. When the clear light appears in the Bardo, it's not flashy or dramatic. It's not a vision of gods or heavens. It's silence, stillness, pure being. For the untrained, that's terrifying. For the awakened, it's home. So what can we do to prepare? We can begin by honoring silence, by sitting in stillness, not to escape the world, but to become intimate with what lies beneath it. We can study our mind, watching thoughts arise and pass. We can begin to see that we are not the thoughts, not the emotions, not even the identity we cling to. We are the awareness in which all of that happens. And if we learn to rest in that awareness now, then when the clear light comes, we won't be strangers. We'll recognize it as the truest part of ourselves. The question, then, is not whether the clear light will appear. It will. The question is, will we recognize it? In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is less a book about death than a guide for awakening, there are instructions read aloud to the dying person. These instructions are reminders. O noble one, now the clear light of reality is dawning. Recognize it, rest in it, do not be afraid. The repetition of those words is not superstition. It's training. It's a thread tying the dying mind to awareness. Even if the person doesn't consciously hear the words, the familiar sound, the intention, can help them remember. And that word, remember, is everything. Because awakening is not about gaining something new. It's about remembering what we already are. The clear light is not foreign. It is our original nature. We have simply forgotten, covered it over, lost ourselves in the noise. So in death, when everything else is stripped away, the invitation is simple: remember. And that remembering begins now. When you sit quietly and the mind begins to settle, notice the space between thoughts. Notice how awareness is already present, before the next idea arises. That is the doorway. When you feel an emotion arise, joy, anger, grief, notice the awareness that knows it. That awareness is not moved. It is not stirred. It simply holds. That is the ground. When you gaze at the sky, or listen to the wind, or sit in the quiet of night, let yourself rest in being. Not doing, not becoming, just being. These are small ways of training, but they are powerful. Because the truth is, you don't have to wait for death to meet the clear light. It's here, now, every moment. And yet, death offers a unique opportunity. A stripping away of all distractions. A doorway opened by force. If we've prepared, that doorway leads to freedom. If we haven't, it leads to another round of becoming. And even then, the Dharma is compassionate. Even if we miss the clear light, Even if we panic or forget, there are still teachings, still chances, still Buddhas guiding us. The path is not all or nothing. It's continuous, and every effort we make now ripples forward. So let your life be a preparation, not out of fear, but out of love. Love for your own awakening. Love for the clarity that is your birthright. Love for the freedom that lies just beyond the veil. The clear light is not far. It is not hidden. It is who you are. Beneath the noise. Rest there. Begin now. In the next section, we will explore what happens when the mind turns away from the clear light, how projections, visions, and symbolic forms arise in the Bardo, and how to understand them not as supernatural threats, but as reflections of our own inner world. The more we understand these visions, the more we can meet them without fear, and perhaps even use them as stepping stones toward liberation. In the earlier section, we explored the clear light, the luminous, peaceful awareness that shines at the moment of death, and we learned how recognizing that light offers the rarest and most direct chance for liberation. But as we also saw, most beings don't recognize it. They recoil, they turn away, and the moment passes. Then something remarkable begins to unfold. As the clear light fades from the awareness of the dying consciousness, a new phase of the Bardo begins. One that is vivid, strange, and deeply personal. This is the phase where the mind starts to project its own contents outward. Thoughts, emotions, and karmic tendencies that were once hidden beneath the surface now become the very landscape of the Bardo experience. The Buddhist masters say that what happens next is like dreaming while wide awake, with no body, no filter, and no control. Imagine your subconscious spilling out into your surroundings. What you see, what you hear, even the forms you encounter, they're all expressions of your own mind. But in the intensity of the moment, you don't realize that, you take it all to be real. For many, the Bardo becomes a theater of confusion. There may be lights flashing in the sky, blazing white, blue, yellow, green. These lights are not ordinary light. They represent different aspects of reality. The 5 wisdoms, the 5 Buddhas. But if your mind is not trained, they seem too bright, too overwhelming. You might shrink away from them, frightened. At the same time, less brilliant, more familiar lights begin to appear, softer, duller. These represent the paths leading back into samsara, back into rebirth. A mind that is not ready for awakening may instinctively move toward these dimmer lights, finding them easier, more comfortable, more safe. And in that movement, a new birth begins. This is how the pull of karma works, not as punishment, but as resonance. You are drawn to what feels familiar. And what feels familiar is determined by the habits you've built throughout your life. In this phase of the Bardo, beings may also encounter peaceful and wrathful deities. These forms are described in great detail in Tibetan texts. Peaceful Buddhas may appear first, radiating compassion and calm. Then come the wrathful ones, fierce, fiery, thunderous in form. To the unprepared, these wrathful forms are terrifying. But for those with understanding, they are not demons. They are the fierce expression of awakened mind, cutting through illusion. Their terrifying faces are meant to shock you awake, to break your attachment, to burn away ignorance. But again, recognition is everything. If you panic, you run, and in running, you reinforce the illusion. The forms chase you, only because you do not yet see they are your own projections. This entire stage of the Bardo is about one thing. Will you realize that what you're seeing is mind? If you do, you're free. If you don't, you're bound. This is not a judgment. It's just the nature of how mind operates. When we're unaware, we create prisons from our own thoughts. When we're aware, even terrifying appearances become doors to freedom. In a way, this part of the Bardo holds a mirror to our lives. How often do we get caught in stories, in fears that aren't real, in cravings that never satisfy, in anger that poisons us more than anyone else? How often do we mistake our passing emotions for the whole truth? The Bardo just magnifies that tendency. But because it's magnified, it also holds incredible potential. If in the midst of all these projections, you can remain steady, you can say to yourself, "This is just mind," you can wake up, not metaphorically, literally. Even if you've missed the clear light, even if you've been lost in confusion, there is still time to recognize, to pause, to remember. That's the beauty of the teachings. They never give up on you. The question, of course, is how do we train to meet these projections without fear? How do we recognize that what we'll see in the Bardo is not reality, but mind appearing as reality? The answer lies in the present moment. Right now, you can begin to see how your mind works. Watch a thought arise. Maybe it's neutral, maybe it's heavy, maybe it's a memory from childhood or an image of something you want. It comes quickly, then it passes, and another comes. They rise like waves, some loud, some quiet, but all of them are just appearances in the field of awareness. This is the training. You begin to see that what you call reality is often filtered through thoughts, beliefs, habits. You begin to loosen your grip on every thought as absolute truth. You cultivate spaciousness, and in that spaciousness, you build strength. You also begin to see your reactions. You notice how quickly fear grabs the body, how easily desire distracts the mind. Not to judge these reactions, but to understand them. The more intimately you know your mind now, the less shocking it will be when it spills open in the Bardo. Meditation is one of the most powerful tools in this training. Because in meditation, the world slows down. You begin to see the arising and dissolving of thoughts, just like the arising and dissolving of Bardo visions. You train in recognizing appearances without clinging to them. You learn not to run, not to fight, just to see. Mantra practice is also essential. A mantra is not magic. It's a rhythm that stabilizes the mind. In the Bardo, when everything is shifting, a mantra becomes a thread, something familiar, something you can hold on to. It anchors you in presence. For example, the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum is not just sound, it's a frequency of compassion. If you recite it daily, it lives in you. In the Bardo, it may arise naturally, and in that arising, it reminds you, stay calm, stay awake, don't get pulled into illusion. There are other supports, too. Visualizing Buddhas, reciting prayers, practicing loving kindness. All of these create imprints. They shape the inner environment. So when the projections begin in the Bardo, they are more likely to be luminous than frightening. But even if fear arises, it's okay. The key is not to fight fear. The key is to recognize it. To say, this is fear. It is just a thought. Just a form. It cannot harm me unless I believe in it. That recognition is the crack where light comes through. You may not get it perfect. None of us do. But even partial recognition makes a difference. Even a flash of awareness can stop the karmic momentum, can open a gap where liberation is possible. In daily life, you can practice this in small ways. When something upsets you, pause. Ask, what is real here? And what is projection? When you find yourself overwhelmed, pause. Breathe. Say, this too is passing. When you feel joy, say, let me enjoy this without clinging. These tiny shifts, repeated over time, build a mind that is not easily shaken. And that's the mind you'll carry into the Bardo. In the end, the Bardo is not something separate from life. It's the continuation of the same patterns. The same mind. Death doesn't give us a new consciousness. It simply reveals what was already there, with nothing left to hide behind. So prepare now, not with fear, but with love. Train now, not for perfection, but for presence. Because when the illusions come, And they will. Your awareness is your compass. Your heart is your light. And the more you practice seeing clearly now, the more you'll be able to walk through that realm, not lost in projections, but guided by wisdom. In the next part, we'll turn to what happens as the Bardo nears its end, how rebirth begins, how new lives are chosen, and how the cycle of samsara continues unless one breaks free. We'll explore the deep mechanics of becoming, and the rare opportunity to choose differently. As the Bardo progresses, the consciousness that has journeyed through the phases of death begins to search for something solid. Having missed the moment of the clear light, having passed through the projections of mind in the Choni Bardo, the mind is now drawn toward manifestation, toward form, toward becoming. This is the Sidpa Bardo, the Bardo of becoming. At this stage, the mind is restless. There's a sense of longing, a gravitational pull toward incarnation, the subtle body that continues beyond death. What Tibetan Buddhism refers to as the mental body becomes increasingly unstable. It cannot remain in that intermediate state indefinitely. Like a seed seeking soil, consciousness begins looking for the right conditions for rebirth. But here's the critical truth. This seeking is not rational. It's not as though the consciousness chooses deliberately. It is moved by momentum, by karma, by habit, by craving, especially craving. The Buddha said that craving is the fuel of rebirth. The desire for pleasure, for identity, for continuity, it pushes the mind forward. Even if the last life was filled with suffering, the familiar cycle pulls us back again. In this Bardo of becoming, the mind scans countless potential lives. Though not consciously, it is attracted to the conditions that mirror its dominant mental states. If fear dominates, it may be drawn to a fearful world. If anger, then perhaps to an existence shaped by violence or conflict. If there is love and clarity, the rebirth may be higher, more peaceful, more fortunate. One of the most fascinating aspects of this phase is the experience of seeing parents. According to traditional teachings, the consciousness may perceive a couple in union and feel a sudden, strong attraction or aversion. That response, combined with karmic resonance, pulls the mind stream into the womb, and thus, conception occurs, not just physically, but on the level of consciousness. But this is not about judgment or morality. It's not about blame. It's simply cause and effect. If the mind is full of desire, it will be pulled toward the conditions that match that desire. If it is full of confusion, it will be drawn into more confusion. If it is clear, it may pause, observe, and even choose with wisdom. Very few beings are able to choose consciously. But those who have trained, those who have cultivated awareness, may retain enough mindfulness in the Bardo to see what's happening. They may pause at the threshold of rebirth. They may even choose not to re-enter the cycle at all. But for most, the momentum is too strong. The forces of karma, the pull of identity, the fear of dissolution, it all propels the mind forward. The terrifying part is that this rebirth happens not just because we want something, but because we can't bear to be with nothing. The absence of form feels like a threat. The mind wants to land somewhere, to become someone, and that desire creates the next existence. And so, the wheel turns. This is why the Buddha emphasized so strongly the importance of understanding craving. Not to suppress life, but to understand what drives it. Not to hate desire, but to see how it controls us, how it shapes every rebirth, every moment, every identity. If you want to understand where your next life might go, look at what you cling to now. Look at what you fear. Look at what you avoid. That's the map. This leads us to one of the most powerful insights in Buddhist thought. Even at the moment of rebirth, liberation is still possible. Even when the karmic winds are blowing strongly. Even when the pull toward incarnation is nearly irresistible. There can be a pause, a gap, a moment of lucidity. If the mind has trained in awareness, It may see through the process. It may recognize, this is just habit. This is just momentum. I don't have to follow it. That moment of non-clinging can stop the cycle. That pause can be enough. But to have that moment in the Bardo, we must cultivate it now. Every time we choose awareness over reaction, we train for that moment. Every time we catch ourselves mid-craving and let go, we shift our karmic direction. Every time we sit with discomfort instead of distracting ourselves, we build the capacity to hold stillness, even in the most unstable phases of the Bardo. This is why daily mindfulness matters so much. Not just to feel calmer, but to build resilience, to rehearse what it means to stay awake when everything in you wants to run. In the Bardo of becoming, the forms you see, the visions you encounter, may not be obviously symbolic. They may be vivid impressions, landscapes, people, lights. They may feel like a dream, or like slipping through countless worlds in a moment. But in all of them, one thread remains: the pull to identify. To say, this is me, this is my place, this is where I belong. That's the root of rebirth. But awareness doesn't have to deny that pull. It simply sees it. It pauses. It asks, is this true? And in that pause, freedom becomes possible. This is not about detachment in the cold sense. It's about deep clarity. It's about knowing what you are beyond form. And it's about choosing not from fear, but from wisdom. For those who are not yet ready to break the cycle, that clarity still helps, because it can guide them toward better rebirths, ones with more peace, more access to the Dharma, more opportunity to awaken. Some beings, filled with compassion, choose to return, not out of craving, but out of vow. They come back not because they are trapped, but because they want to help others escape. These are the bodhisattvas, the awakened ones who delay their final liberation to assist all sentient beings. Their choice is not driven by karma, but by love. That's the highest use of rebirth, not as a prison, but as a path. But for most of us, the question remains, when the moment comes, and the pull is strong, will we have the presence to pause? Will we have the space to choose? That depends on how we live now. Do we rush from one distraction to the next? Or do we cultivate stillness? Do we avoid discomfort? Or do we learn to sit with it? Do we follow every craving? Or do we observe it with wisdom? Each moment is a rehearsal for the Bardo. And even if we fail sometimes, that's okay. What matters is that we keep training. We keep remembering. We keep returning to the breath, the body, the present. We keep choosing awareness over habit. Because the more we do that now, the more likely we are to do it later, when everything depends on it. In the final part of this journey, we'll look at the deeper purpose behind all of these teachings. What does it truly mean to die well? To be reborn wisely? And how can we live each day in a way that prepares us not just for death, but for awakening, here and now, and beyond? As we've walked through this journey together, we've explored the unseen realm between death and rebirth, the Bardo. We've discovered that it's not some distant mystical idea, but a vivid and intimate continuation of our current state of mind. We've learned how the mind, stripped of its physical anchors, manifests its tendencies, projects its fears and hopes, and ultimately gravitates toward a new birth based on what it's most familiar with. But now we return to the most important question of all. If the Bardo reflects the mind, and if death merely reveals what we've spent a lifetime rehearsing, then how do we prepare? Not at the moment of dying, but now, in this very moment. The answer is both beautifully simple and deeply challenging. To live in a way that prepares you to die without fear. To die well, you must live well. And in Buddhist terms, that means living with mindfulness, with compassion, with understanding. It means not running from suffering but turning toward it and seeing its causes. It means investigating the truth of impermanence, not as a philosophical idea, but as a lived experience. Everything changes. Every breath is new. Every thought arises and fades. The illusion is that anything stays the same, that you are the same person you were even 5 minutes ago. But if you can become intimate with impermanence, then when death comes, it won't be a shock. It will be the next breath, the next letting go. You will have practiced it every day. There's a phrase in Tibetan: death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. What will help at that time is Dharma. Not fear, not possessions, not reputation, only the mind you've trained. And training doesn't mean becoming a monk. It doesn't mean leaving the world. It means turning your ordinary life into a path. It means using your relationships, your struggles, your joys, and your losses as reminders. This won't last. What matters is how present I am, how open I am, how awake I am. We all want peace at the end. But peace is not something that appears magically when the body shuts down. It's something we plant now, moment by moment. Every time you pause and breathe, you're preparing. Every time you forgive instead of holding on, you're preparing. Every time you face something uncomfortable instead of distracting yourself, you're preparing. Because the truth is, you're already in a Bardo. This very life is a transitional state. You appeared in this world through causes and conditions, and you will leave it the same way. Every moment in between is a chance to wake up. You don't have to become perfect. You just have to become familiar with your mind, to see how it moves, to know what triggers suffering, and to touch, however briefly, the stillness that lies beneath. That stillness is the same stillness that appears in the clear light. That awareness is the same awareness that watches the projections. That clarity is the same clarity that can pause at the threshold of rebirth and say, I see. As we close this journey, let's reflect on what it truly means to be ready. It doesn't mean having all the answers. It doesn't mean being fearless. It means being able to meet whatever arises with honesty, with kindness, with understanding. The Buddha never promised a life without pain. He promised a path through it. And that path continues beyond this life. The Bardo is not the end. It's a continuation, a mirror, a teaching, an opportunity. Even in death, the Dharma is with you. When the body fades, let the breath of mindfulness remain. When the senses dissolve, let the eye of awareness stay open. When the world falls away, let compassion be your ground. In Tibetan Buddhism, practitioners meditate on death not to be morbid, but to remember what matters. They imagine the dissolving of the elements, the collapse of form, the release of identity, and they train to rest in the space that remains. That space is not empty in the way we fear. It is full of presence, radiant, boundless. It is what we call Buddha nature. And the miracle is, you don't have to wait for death to find it. Every time you rest in awareness, without chasing or rejecting anything, you taste it. Every time you offer love without agenda, you embody it. Every time you surrender the small self and touch the vastness of being, you remember what you truly are. The Bardo is not a punishment. It's not a test. It's a chance to wake up, a chance to let go, a chance to return to your true nature. But if you want to take that chance, you must start now. Make your life your training ground. Make your relationships your teachers. Make your breath your home. And when the time comes, and it will, walk into the unknown not as a victim, not as a soul cast adrift, but as a traveler who has prepared. The Buddha said, just as a rock does not move in the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame. Can you be that still? Can you be that present? Even as the forms of this world dissolve? You can, with practice, with love, with faith, not in something outside you, but in the deepest truth inside you. That's what this teaching is. Not a doctrine to believe, but a mirror to see yourself. May you see clearly. May you remember. May you live in such a way that death is not an end, but a beginning. And may the Dharma guide you, always, home. Before you go, Take a quiet moment, right now. Close your eyes gently. Let the breath come and go, like waves on a calm ocean. Let thoughts pass, like clouds in a wide sky. Let the body soften, and simply rest in being. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to figure everything out. Just be here, aware, alive. If it feels helpful, softly whisper a mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, or simply, Namo Amitabha Buddha. Let the sound carry your heart into stillness. And if you feel lost, or uncertain, or afraid, remember this. You are not alone. Countless beings have walked this path before you. And the Buddha's wisdom is always here, waiting in the quiet, like a candle in the dark. You don't have to make a grand change overnight. Just one breath, one moment of presence, one sincere thought of compassion. That is enough to begin. So tonight, before sleep, sit for 5 minutes, or take a few deep breaths with your hand on your heart. Or whisper a Buddha's name as you drift into dreams. These small seeds, planted with care, grow into courage, and that courage will be with you, in life, in death, and beyond. Until next time, may you walk gently, may your heart stay open, and may the light within you grow ever brighter.